today we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, quite possibly of all time, and that's design. Wedding design, in this particular capacity. Otherwise, that'd be weird, because this is a wedding planning channel. If you're new around these here parts, hi, first of all, my name's Jamie Wolfer. I'm your online wedding planner. I'm here to literally help supplement or replace a wedding planner in your life, because some of y'all are balling on a budget and you can't afford one of us, because we're a real spendy bunch, aren't we? Yes, we are. In today's video, it's going to be an in-depth Q&A with some of the members over in the master plan. If you're like, what is that? Allow me to indulge you a little bit. The master plan is my online program where I teach people how to plan their weddings. Like, I help you plan your wedding in chronological order, in real time, and this is one of those real-time situations where I got to sit down with some of the members, and they sent in some of their decor, DIY, and floral questions, and we got right down to it, including, but not limited to, how to add wow factor to your venue on the cheap, any and all the ways you can reuse florals, how to infuse color into your wedding without using florals at all, and quite a bit more. If you are interested, and or if you are absolutely stressed out of your noodle planning this wedding, and you are literally inhaling these videos, and you find that you just need a little bit more support, please come join me in the master plan. We try to keep the monthly payments super low. I'm there live in real time once a month answering your questions. We also have a live virtual assistant answering your questions. We are here for you and we want to support you as much as possible because you deserve to have a stress-free wedding day. I'm going to go ahead and link the master plan right up there for you to check out. You're not going to believe how inexpensive it is. And yes, I always keep the price vague because you need to go look. And then you're going to be like, oh, okay. But if you want a little sample, a little snacky poo of what we do in the master plan, check out the rest of this video. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. Hi, guys. Hello. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited for this month's phone call. How are we doing? What's the big wedding planning thing you checked off your list since the last time we spoke? Or if you're brand new, what's something that you checked off your list in the last couple of weeks? Go ahead and drop that in the chat box. If you are new, hi, welcome. Obviously have some pre-submitted questions because we asked you guys to send those in. And so we'll go over those. And then if there's any time at the end, I will answer questions in live time with you guys. And this month's topic is DIY decor and florals, but it doesn't have to be limited to those. So let's go ahead and dive right into these. How can I create a colorful wedding without purchasing a lot of flowers? And what are some alternative decorations to flowers? You infuse colors in a lot of ways. You do not need to be limited to florals. Your tablecloths, your napkins, oftentimes you can find ones that are a different color, a lot more vibrant if that's what you're wanting to do, for a very similar, if not identical cost. So you won't often get upcharged if you decide to choose different colors for your linens. That makes a really big statement. Notice I didn't say upgrade your linens. You really don't need to do that unless you feel some sort of sentimental attachment to the idea of adding more texture onto your tabletop, but try those. You can also swap out the plates and the utensils for color. That gets pricier though. You can add it in with your wedding party. Often those that are wearing dresses, you can get like really vibrant colors, kind of infuse it that way. So it doesn't have to be very literal. With the florals, it can be more spoken out in the palette of what everyone in your wedding party is wearing. Pocket squares, ties, or button-up shirts, think through all those things. All of those things can be tweaked and you can have some fun with those. Photo booth backdrops, that's another great thing. Any sort of signage, infuse color into those, as opposed to keeping them pretty monochromatic. You know your girl loves a monochromatic look, right? I love it. But if you want to do color without purchasing a lot of flowers, that's where I would go. And think about the vessels that if you are going to get flowers, that they're going to go into. If you have bud vases, there are a ton of great hacks out there for painting bud vases and getting them the exact color that you want. I highly recommend thrifting, doing a bunch of bud vases, painting them the color that you want, and then you just have like this very aesthetically pleasing color palette going on, right? Because you got to pick your exact centerpiece colors. And with bud vases, they don't use as many florals. What are all the best ways to reuse flowers from your ceremony to the reception? All the best ways. This feels like a test, and I don't... I feel like I'm gonna feel it. Okay. Well, first of all, make sure your florist knows that you would like to reuse them. Some florists like knowing this because they might design it slightly different. So if you have an arch piece and you're doing cages, that's what those are called, like a jumbo cage or whatever, on your arch display, and then you want to reuse it, let's say on your sweetheart table. That's a very common way to reuse. You might want to let your florist know so they design on certain sides of it so it looks aesthetically pleasing in both places. Also, make sure you know who's taking this down and transporting it for you, because those are usually a bit more wild. They're not as regimented. They're not in a structured little like compote dish. So they need to be transported with caution and with care. Any altar florals can be reused. Oftentimes altar flowers are, or like if you have them on pillars as you're walking in, or maybe stakes in the ground, those can be repurposed to dress up your sweetheart table or your head table. obviously if where your head table or sweetheart table is still allows for stakes to be planted. If you have something on pillars, those can be reused again to frame where you are eating. Or if they're identical to the centerpieces, they can be reused as centerpieces. So maybe you can order two less. Just again, who's moving these? Florals are precious little angel babies, and they are, some of them are very sensitive. So if they're being transported at all, make sure someone is handling them with the utmost of care, because you want to get the most bang for your buck out of these florals. What are some other ways? I've seen bridesmaids put their bouquets into different vases around the reception space. This, I'm kind of like on the fence on because, yes, it buys you more florals, which is fantastic. Like, not buys you more florals. You get to use those florals in another capacity, and the bridesmaids aren't really carrying them around at that point, anyways. But they could be pretty battered. They tend to be very tall because obviously they have all those stems with them. So you're going to need a pretty tall vase to hold them, which will not look the same as the rest of your centerpieces. So it's not like you can just plunk one down and it's going to look the same. It's going to look like a bouquet in a vase of water. And you hope that they're still looking good at this point of the day because they've been carried around for the entire day. What are some modern yet earthy alternatives to traditional flowers? The modern twist right now is definitely doing dried, right? Oh, there we go. Maria said I'd considered DIYing dried fruit like pomegranates or dehydrated orange slices. Moss. We do love a good moss in a floral display. It eats up more real estate on the center of your table. So if you're ever doing something like bud vases or a multitude of different heights in whatever vessels you have on your centerpiece, you want something to kind of ground them. Think of most people don't do this anymore, but think of the mirrors from like the 90s and early aughts, how they'd like plunk a mirror down and then put stuff all on top of it. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I might be dating myself a little bit. But that is how they used to ground centerpieces if they were using a mirror. Think of it like that. It's almost like you're creating, or the wood rounds, it's creating visual weight, a magnet to kind of hold everything all together and give it more of a physical presence than just bud vases sitting on a table. So moss is a fantastic idea. So yeah, now that you guys are offering your answers, I'm like, of course I know the answers now. Dried florals fall apart like crazy, can be very expensive, but have a fantastic texture and they're very fun to play with when it comes to styling. When I hear modern and earthy, I'm seeing like driftwood centerpieces or terrariums that are different at each table. I would love to do terrariums at every table. You guys know how much I love plants? I love them so much. That would be, but I would want to take them home and be like, nobody touch them, because I would need 18 terrariums later, right? But we're definitely seeing a lot of terrariums still being very popular. I think it might be a little bit difficult to pull off in this capacity. Maybe every other table having terrarium, but still kind of blending across the board. I love what you're kind of putting together there, Kelly. I think that sounds great. I want to find ways to make the venue look fabulous and fun without spending a ton on decor/rentals. Do you have any tips or tricks for easy and or inexpensive things that bring charm and wow factor to the day? Okay, first of all, we have to be practical with the amount of space that you have, right? Like if this is a gigantic space, you are not going to be able to cover everything up. You're not going to be able to infuse entertainment into a bunch of different places. So what I'm hearing right now is we want it to be charming. We want wow factor. So I would focus on things that people could touch. So make sure your centerpieces look good. This is not where I'd put faux florals necessarily for a centerpiece. I would have a fun photo booth. I know so many people are like, I'm over it because it's not cool anymore. Do you know how many like wedding guests love photo booths? They love them so very much. They don't care if it's not avant-garde anymore. They don't care if it's in vogue. They don't care if people feel like they've been overdone. They want to go take silly photos with all of their friends and family that happen to be there as well. So I think that doing a fun photo booth backdrop is a great way to add charm to the day, right? We're not trying to break the wedding design, right? We're not breaking the mold. We're just trying to create fun and infuse like a charming little moment for them to have. So that would be a great way of doing that. As far as wow factors are concerned, unless you're doing some sort of large design installation, it's very hard to wow people with inexpensive design. Does that make sense? Instead, I would probably, if we're trying to be really strategic about this, unless you're making your own backdrop for a photo booth or backdrop for behind where you guys are getting married and or your table where you're eating dinner for the reception, I would try to play into the infusing your personality into the little details. Table numbers, right? That's not gonna have a huge wow factor. It's gonna be a subtle little like, oh, is that pictures of them as babies or places you've been to? Or I'd infuse personality into things like that as opposed to big wow factors. I hear wow factor and I think big. I hear charm and I think little details. So it's hard to do big wow, big installations of stuff without being complicated to install and or expensive. So I would lean more on the charming. How your timeline's put together, how your event is run, with the things your DJ says, the songs that you pick, make those infused with your personalities and your love story rather than picking stuff that's rather typical. That's where I would go because that'll make it more charming and more memorable instead of wow factors. How would I be able to make a low popcorn ceilinged big 70s basement look pretty and not dingy for my reception? We're leaning into an old worldly design like Victorian professor office vibes, if that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. You're talking dark academia. Your girl loves dark academia. This sounds fantastic. I would cut the lights, get it moody in there, right? Because if people can't see the ceiling, great. Okay. So we're candles everywhere or warm Edison bulbs. Literally bring lamps in there. Try to find ways of like infusing this warm goldeny glow, but kind of softens the edges of the rooms in such a way, or the room in such a way that it's not highlighting the ceiling, right? Because if the light's so low that people are kind of looking at the people across from them, they're not paying attention to what's going on with the ceiling. I was going to do that. Yay, I'm glad I'm on the right track. Yes, absolutely. If there's ways that you can infuse moodiness in other areas, absolutely. Just the lighting is going to be the biggest hack. In a space where you don't want people to pay attention to all the surroundings, don't light it up. There's this, my grandfather said this to my grandmother once, and they were at the dinner table with my parents and all of their daughters and son-in-laws. And my grandfather looked at my grandmother and goes, Myrna, you look beautiful by the candlelight. Because he was this old Southern man. And they all busted up laughing because they're like, what do you mean? Just because she doesn't look beautiful at normal light. I don't know what got the son-in-laws going, but they could not be stopped. So if you want things to look beautiful, just put it in candlelight. Things that may not look gorgeous in the normal light of day. Just kidding. My grandmother was beautiful. But it definitely came across like only in the candlelight, like normal light, not so much. Thanks, dear. That's very kind. Do you see any common issues that come up or have any tips for having your ceremony and reception at the same location? Well, Annalise, it kind of depends on, are you doing it in the same room, in the same space, or are you doing it in two different spaces? Because as far as that's concerned, if it's two different spaces, you don't really have to do a flip because it's all right there, which is great. If you do need to do a flip, you need a lot of bodies. Okay, so same space. So we're talking about doing a flip. You'll need a lot of bodies in a short amount of time to make this switch over for you. You're going to want to make sure everything is as smooth as possible beforehand. We're talking organized. We're talking a list of everything that needs to be set up. And this is going to sound super overwhelming. So just remember, you have a lot of time to get organized ahead of time. You will not have a lot of time day of. So you need to give specific tasks to specific groups of people or to specific people. So it's all groomsmen. You guys are rolling the tables in, okay? All bridesmaids, you are going to go around and mark each table for how many chairs they should have at it. There's going to be a master copy for you to go off of. Table 1 has 10. Table 2 has 7. Make sure that you have like Post-its or a piece of paper so they can go around and set on each table the number of chairs that need to be there. If you're doing place settings, the number of place settings that need to be there. Then you'll have a group or a person, single person, whatnot, designated to place all the centerpieces. So if you looked at groomsmen, you're like, your only job is to set up the tables and put the right amount of chairs around each table. That's it. Here's the guide. Go with God. I would also make sure that there's one person managing all of it. How can I trust that my aesthetic will be relayed? And how do I know if I have enough decor? Okay, two separate things. Relayed to whom? Because you will have the option of like checks and balances with rental companies, like, or unless you're giving a designer, a wedding designer, which most of us in this budget are like not working with designers. So I'm confused by what you mean by how can I trust that my aesthetic will be relayed? Because you're the one designing it or talking to the person designing it. Now, second part of that question is, how do I know if I have enough decor? If you need a U-Haul, it might be too much. If you know, you know. Honestly, centerpieces, signage, florals. You really don't need anything beyond that. How do I make a thrifted wedding look purposeful / matching? I love thrifting. I'm actually not wearing anything thrifted today. What is wrong with me? So here's what you want to do. You want to do continuity with textures, okay? So if you want to thrift a bunch of vintage silver, make sure there's a piece of silver on every single table, whether it's a sugar bowl or a teapot or something vintage silver on every single table, right? It'll keep it pretty cohesive. If you are doing amber bottles, I don't care where they came from, make sure there's an amber bottle on every single table. Guest tables, reception tables, by the way. So that way we're working with the same idea, but not carbon copies on every single table. What decorations / signage are must-haves? Haha, there it is. There is the DIY items checklist if you guys want to check that out. And then I do have a whole video dedicated to signage on what you need and what you don't need. So we'll go ahead and drop that in the chat if you want to look through that. I'm worried that if I rattle them off, I'm going to forget them. So we'll go off of that for now. Kelly wants to know, what is the biggest bang for the buck in terms of sourcing, ease of setup, less messy, etc.? I'm planning a January wedding and everything will be indoors, hoping to do simple greenery. We gather ourselves like pine boughs, holly branches, etc., but being mindful of the mess. Then we'll simply compost / throw in the woods at the end of the weekend. Great. Seems to be the most eco-friendly and budget-friendly option. Not planning to do any bouquets as no bridal party, so what am I missing or not considering here? We have the venue all weekend and we are staying on site, so everything will be set up the night before. So it sounds like you've got a pretty solid plan here. I agree. I would test the greenery, the pine boughs first to see if they will fall apart or not. I don't know if you guys do live Christmas trees or not, but there are some that shed needles like crazy, and there's some that do perfectly fine sitting out for an extended period of time or do really well in drought-like conditions if you're not good at watering your Christmas tree. So double check that first, because that could be kind of a nightmare. As far as sourcing is concerned, I mean, if you could forage for them, I'm not beneath foraging. Mostly worried about sap being sticky. Okay, dry run. In fact, Rebecca, if you have any insight on this, I'm not saying she goes around her neighborhood to find stuff to use in floral displays, but I'm also not saying it. It sounds like you've got a solid plan. So I'm trying to figure out how I could add value to that other than going out and sourcing them a couple things ahead of time and testing them out, letting them sit out. How long ahead of time can you trim them before the pine needles start falling off? Can you put them in something? Do you want them up and like upright? So do you want them in bottles or do you want them laying across the table? It sounds like you've got a solid plan. How would you store ice for the self-serve soda bar? It depends on, well, one, you can just have an ice bucket with a little scoop, a little ice scoop. You like how I mimed it for you? Would you have understood what I was talking about if I didn't do that? I would just have a little self-serve ice bucket there, but you probably need something larger and you'll need someone to maintain it or watch it. Although, in my opinion, it would probably be a lot easier to not have the large 2-liter bottles and instead go for single servings. Then you don't need to worry about ice because those could just be inside the cooler or inside the trough or whatever you're keeping your beverages cool in. So I was trying to figure out, like, why have we never run into this before? That's because we don't do giant 2 liters. We do single servings. So I would suggest doing that first as a first resort. And if you really, really want to do some sort of interactive soda bar style thing, then I would have some sort of vessel to hold the clean ice in. Do you have any websites or store recommendations for DIY real florals? So it depends on how much help you want with this, Jamie. So you can go as far as just go all out without very much instruction. That would be 50 Flowers. Although they do have an excellent customer service, and I think they have some DIYs, but their website is clunky as heck, okay? And they keep trying to redesign it, and every time I'm like, it's still clunky. But that's a great resource to buying florals in bulk, but they're not going to hold your hand on putting it together, okay? Which I've ordered from 50 Flowers. I loved it. That was a great experience. And I've worked with them many times. So Lisa, who is the CEO and founder, she's fantastic. I really, really enjoy her. There is another option that's Flower Moxie. This is a little bit more hand-holding. I'm sure the price will reflect that as well. So this is where they'll basically kind of help you come up with your design and they help you put together your order. And then I believe they have tutorials on how to put it together. So that's going to be like a step up. Also, if you were going full DIY, no help, Sam's Club, Trader Joe's, Costco, all of them offer bulk florals. And then if you want something that's, I mean, not DIY, but not maybe as expensive as a local florist, there's a company called Poppy, and they're doing their best to cut out the middleman and trying to get florists in direct contact with couples. So that could be another fantastic option. We do have a floral quiz if you want to take it, and they'll pair you up with the best result for what you could be doing or the options that we've used before that we recommend. So bulk without help, 50 Flowers has the most selection, but you can also order through Costco, Trader Joe's, Sam's Club. A little bit more help, Flower Moxie. The least amount of DIY, a little bit more help from a local florist would probably be Poppy.